Feel the thorns embrace. Wait until my seeds take root.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift. Seconds until minions spawn.
The forest holds many surprises.
Enemy double kill.
Such a busy world.
Minions have spawned.
Take careful steps. None will escape my grasp. flower. Wait until my seeds take root.
An ally has been slain.
The
An
forest
enemy
told
has
me
been slain.
Such a busy world.
Enemy killing spree.
Take careful steps. Venture off the beaten path.
Blast them, Gauntlet!
Things aren't always what they seem.
Has been slain.
Just a harmless flower.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain.
Till my seeds take root. The forest holds many surprises. Bloom. Such a busy world.
Shut down.
Careful steps.
An enemy has been slain.
That's one. Venture off the beaten path. Things aren't always what they seem.
An enemy has been slain.
Promising garden. Just a harmless flower.
An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
The forest holds many surprises. Such a busy world. Take careful steps. So much more.
An
Venture.
ally has been slain.
User joined your channel.
Hallo. Ja, machen sie nur einmal. Das machen die nur einmal. Weil sie dort schon Recht des Trainings auf ihren Händen auf dem Boden verbringen und den ganzen Tag Liegestütz machen.
An enemy has been slain.
Damit nutze ich meine Macht schamlos aus.
An ally has been slain.
My prey.
Down. An ally has been slain.
Just a harmless flower. Wait and see.
Down.
Two down.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain.
The
Your
forest
turret has been destroyed.
surprises. forest holds many surprises.
An ally has been slain. Shut down.
The harvest is upon us.
Enemy rampage.
Just so much more to see.
Your team has destroyed a turret. Executed.
surprises.
Your inhibitor is respawning soon. An enemy has been slain. Your turret has been destroyed.
Such a busy world.
Smash these idiots, won't you?
Take careful steps. So much more to see. Just wait.
Killing spree.
Was für eine harmonische Woche. Also klar existiert nur, um mich zu zermürben. Der Gott, an den ich nicht glaube, hat...
Jesus, ist der groß. So ekliger.
Wasser. Weil dort in die Sauna gehen. Gehen wir vor der Sauna, Türen sind zu. Verdi hat zum Streik aufgerufen. Alle Bäder in Stuttgart sind dazu.
Bei mir fahren die Bahn die ganze Zeit nicht.
Das haben sie auch gemacht.
Wieso? Da ist wenigstens frei, da kannst du wenigstens mitlaufen. Nee.
Der läuft nur montags nicht.
Das ist nicht mehr montags.
Woher weißt du das?
Weil ich dann immer warten muss, weil meine Bahn dann nicht fährt. Weil die jetzt immer bei dem Theaterplatz rumlaufen.
Ja, auf welchen Tag haben sie es verschoben?
Und die machen das jetzt unregelmäßig.
Also unangekündigt oder wie?
Ja, einfach nur unregelmäßig. Also eine Woche war es zum Beispiel 5-mal gefühlt und in der anderen dann wieder 2 Wochen nicht.
Aber nicht die Corona-Typen.
Ja, die Impfgegner, ja.
Die sind in Dresden immer noch am Rumrennen.
Ja, die sind immer noch rum. Ich frage mich zwar immer noch, warum.
Ja, aber es gibt doch keine Regeln mehr.
Weiß ich vielleicht, weil sie, das habe ich mich auch mal gefragt, aber vielleicht auch, weil sie sich ja impfen lassen mussten.
Ja, aber der Zug ist halt abgefahren.
Nee, der Zug ist nicht gefahren, die streiken.
Ja, aber wogegen willst du jetzt noch protestieren, wenn das ist doch eh schon alles vorbei. Ja, aber wir leben ja alle noch, die Theorie hat sich, oder sterben wir jetzt bald.
Nee, das geht so langsam, das ist so einer nach dem anderen, das darf ja nicht auffallen.
True.
So, jetzt die wichtige Frage. Was spielt man von AD Carry, wenn man eine gebrochene Hand hat?
Warum hast du eine gebrochene Hand? Keine Ahnung, Heimerdinger oder sowas wahrscheinlich.
Hä, hast du eine gebrochene Hand?
Ja.
Wie hast du das hingekriegt?
Skifahren.
Ach Gottes Willen.
Wurde
Ja, mir auch.
überarbeitet, ne, die Ash.
Okay.
Die ist jetzt komplett anders.
Okay.
Philipp.
Nee, die stand da gerade echt, da stand adjusted.
Bei was?
Feel the thorns embrace.
Also ist sie genervt.
Ja, irgendwas muss ja gebufft sein, wenn sie 2 Sachen nerven.
Das Problem ist jetzt eher, dass Philipp gleich rumbrüllen wird.
Warum wegen Joan, oder was?
Ja.
Fitz ist gebufft, ne? Nee, der war weak as fuck. Der war echt nicht stark.
Oh, warte, wir haben einen Aurelion Soldinus.
Ja, aber darauf wirst du dich nicht so lang freuen, ne?
Haben sie den eigentlich inzwischen mal genervt?
Naja, die haben sie ja hotfixed und jetzt, glaube ich, wieder angepasst.
Philipp. Ich glaube, Philipp hat aber recht mit seiner Theorie. Mein Account ist doomed, seit ich den Chatban hatte.
Ja, das soll ja alle Tox sein. Ich habe jetzt übrigens auch einen Chat bei meinem letzten Jahr, habe ich auch interessiert.
Oh nein.
Ja, gut. Jetzt weiß ich mal, wie die Meldung aussieht, wie ich immer sehe jedes Game. Hä, das war das erste Mal, was soll das heißen?
Die letzten 4 Games, die ich gemacht habe, hatte ich jedem Game entweder einen, der in der Lobby schon gesagt hat, I'm gonna end this, we will lose. Oder einen, der dann irgendwann mal in der Mitte einfach stand und dann einfach sich so geshadout hat. Weißt?
Wenigstens ehrlich, ne? Muss man auch
Ja,
mal so
aber
sagen.
was ist das?
Alles gut, ich habe bald Diablo 4, CSGO 2 kommt raus, Jungs.
Darauf freue ich mich schon. Fühle ich mich gerade wirklich LE.
Ja, LE ist kacke, Mathe.
Ich habe LE mit 4 Wins. Ich muss bald LEM sein.
Nur Global zählt.
Mache ich bald.
Und ihr
Das ist jetzt useless.
den NFT-Shooter gesehen habt, ja.
Was?
Die haben so ein Game wie Escape from Tarkov, nur die wollen, dass du immer so größere Runden und längere und du spielst sozusagen, wenn du der Gewinner bist, kannst du NFTs oder so Coins gewinnen, aus der Lobby holen. Also wie Escape from Tarkov nur mit Coins und NFTs.
Das ist ein Game, das sich scammt.
Jetzt hat Dr. Disrespect hat das irgendwie, der wurde, glaub ich, von denen gesponsert und dann musste er das verteidigen.
Ja. Alter, du kannst jetzt bei League einstellen, Display Recommended Jungle Path.
Ja, schon lange.
Ja, aber dann zeigt dir ja der Client sogar die Timer an der Minimap an.
Nö, das ist eine Blitz-App.
Hä?
Das ist eine Blitz-App.
Nee, ich hab's gerade eingestellt, ich hab's gerade versucht.
Redest?
Wenn du auf Escape klickst, auf Game und dann kannst du das unten einmachen. Jetzt zeigt es mir die Counter an.
Wo ist das? Bei Interface, oder was?
Nee, bei Game. Bei Game gibt's unter Gameplay gibt's den Punkt jetzt.
Aber bei mir nicht.
Ja, aber du bist auch nicht im Jungle.
Minions have
Da muss
spawned.
man
Ja, du bist auch nicht im Jungle. Mach das mal an, wenn du Jungle bist.
Aber ich sehe da keine Zeiten. Das wäre ja OP. Also,
Also bei mir zeigt es zum Beispiel bei den Crux an, dass die in 19 spawnen. Und
das ist aber deine
in 4,
Blitz-App.
3.
Also, wenn ich die
Nee,
Blitz-App
meine
habe, möchte ich so.
Blitz-App zeigt mir, der hat ein anderes Overlay.
Oh mein Gott.
So much more to see.
Ich würde jetzt gleich Toplane. Oxid gar nicht.
The forest holds many surprises. Wait until my seeds take root.
Die Autotext von dem Aurelion Sol sind richtig clean.
Come closer.
Muss man nur sagen. Ne?
Just a harmless flower.
First blood.
Why?
An enemy has been slain.
Such a busy world.
Der hat sich gerade selber getötet.
Things aren't always what they seem.
Der wartet Topside.
Ja, da kommt er. Jetzt aber echt low.
A promising
Aber hat noch irgendeinen. Kann nicht hingehen.
An enemy has been slain.
Move direkt so weit auf die Bot.
Oh, ich brauche schon wieder zu früh. Was ist denn das in letzter Zeit?
Ich habe kein Wort für den Hop. Die sehen mich aber, oder? Da ist die Y. Die Y will, glaube ich, die kommt gleich hier. Die ist glaube ich, hier.
venture off the beaten path.
Ich würde weiter farmen gehen. Oder gewinnen wir das Free.
Geht es nicht durch Minen? Es ging doch immer durch Minen.
Könnte auch, oder?
So much more to see. The forest
Die war full, oder?
surprises.
Why?
Nicht ganz, aber relativ.
Er kommt noch zurück, ich dachte.
The heart
Dafür müsste sterben eigentlich.
Has been slain.
Echte Pisse. Die war dumm.
wait until my seeds take root.
Die können nicht freezen, die haben Slow Push. Ja, das ist schon hart. So easy.
Come closer.
Ein bisschen farmen, ich bin ziemlich bereit für XP. Bin ziemlich strong. Ja, ich will nur Kick haben.
Just a harmless flower.
Die haben gewartet. Mach einen Red Buff und dann kann ich direkt nochmal kommen.
Such a
Bitte fehlt, aber probably back.
Noch da.
things aren't always what they seem.
Weiß in der Mitte.
Den Crap nicht gemacht. Können wir den Drake einfach machen?
Ein Giga Daudi. Hat mich in der Mitte überlegen.
Venture off the beaten path.
Kick, ich kann durchlaufen.
Lieber, dass ihr wegkommt.
Ich lauf direkt auf die Top durch. Ich glaube eher, dass der hier ist. Die.
See.
Oh.
Oh mein Gott!
Geh nicht hin, geh nicht hin. Geduld.
The forest holds many surprises.
So auf der da Ult, probably. Na, ich hab keinen Bock. Ich verliere so viel dadurch für die Scheiße.
Wait until my
Der hat Ult, ne?
seeds take root.
Ja, aber das ist slow.
Ne, ich habe gerade schon hochgeschossen.
Come closer.
Minions sehen, ne?
Rose rennt halt auch noch nach vorne. Und los mit denen.
Ja, und fehlt. Was ist wieder da?
Gleich wieder kommen.
Just a harmless flower.
Eigentlich auch, das reicht.
Die weiße. Sorry. Hat geultet.
Das sehen.
War die Y low?
Waren wir alle fast
Things
tot.
aren't always what they seem. A promising garden.
Geralt, Mann.
Take careful steps.
Ja,
Ist das Sinch kein Farm? Das ist mir ein Rätsel.
Venture out with the impact. So much more. to see.
no.
Ihr dürft vielleicht noch keine Ult haben. Oh, der Kick war ein bisschen früh.
The forest holds many
Wir
surprises.
gewinnen das mal zu.
Mhm. Oh mein Gott, so nicht. Ja, weg, 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 weg. Oder? Wir müssen es gewinnen.
Wir müssen es eigentlich gewinnen. Lassen wir es dabei.
Mhm.
Hat kein Mana. Auf, wenn der Schild hat, kann es noch knapp werden. Geben gerade alle Wischen. Aber der Jorn hat
Ja,
geulti.
ich hab keinen Smite, ich hab ihn gerade gesmitet.
Guck mal, das mit Q-Finish oder so.
Just a harmless flower.
Da ulti in Flash von dem in der Mitte, oder?
Ja, aber der fehlt.
Such a busy world.
Kommt da hin. Hab ihn. Fight so hart.
Ich würde einfach Drake machen, Nino.
Ja, kannst du mal an der Lucian muss bei.
Deswegen. Das ist die Y, bist du da?
Ja.
Garden.
Ah ja. Oh.
Johannes?
Raus.
Venture Venture
Unlucky.
off the beaten path.
Die war gerade nicht gestorben.
Gut, mein Damage ist, glaube ich, noch nicht so high.
Du kriegst, für wofür kriegst du jetzt alles, diese komischen...
Für eigentlich alles, was ich, also Last Hits, Champions, etc.
Ja, du hast 3 Kills, musst du nicht schon kurz vor Upgrade sein?
Ja, mein Ulti ist erst jetzt abgegradet. Die war gerade eben noch nicht abgegradet.
Ja, aber das ist ja schon mal huge, oder? Wollen wir Herald setzen?
Der Herald ist, die Ulti ist das Wichtigste.
Sollen wir Herald in der Mitte setzen?
Das ist eh schon zu spät, aber wir können.
Deswegen. Ja, dann ist er weg.
Before
Ja.
I told its name.
Okay, ja.
Runter, lass runtergehen.
Er geht ja sogar in Town. Ist
Wade until
You gotta be kidding me, Alter.
Ich glaube, ich aber den Free Kill nehmen sollen.
Hast du sie nicht gekriegt?
Nee, Y kam da mir entgegen.
Ach so, oh fucking hell, ich dachte, das, my bad, greedy.
Ja, das ist gut.
come closer.
Ich dachte, wir haben das safe.
Aber mein Damage ist echt noch nicht so der Shit. Bin ich ehrlich, ja.
Just a harmless flower.
Ich überlebe gerade die ganze Zeit mit MP, Alter.
Ah, okay, ich hab falsch gespielt, okay. Muss die Minions müssen durch meine Dinge sterben.
Fuck. Da kommt alles runter.
These aren't always what they seem.
Ja, Y kam an.
das ist so schlimm.
Shut down.
Geh entgegen, Philipp. Stellst die mal ein bisschen, bist du näher?
Die kam zurück. Bei der Tower, ne? Ja, Flash.
Was mehr oder irgendwas ist da.
Du brauchst.
Giga strong, by the way. Ich mal den Lucian killen, habe ich ihn drin.
Okay.
Vielleicht durchlaufen wegen dem Moor, der oben der Vater ist.
An enemy has been
Schön.
shut down.
War ich bei mir. Okay.
Die kicken.
Venture off the beaten path.
An ally has been slain.
Ach, Mann.
Shut down.
Tank.
Double kill.
Ah, scheiße.
Nein!
An ally has been slain.
So much need to see.
Die wird zu meinem Red laufen wahrscheinlich. Mein Botzeit-Jungle ist wahrscheinlich jetzt weg.
Ja, so müssen wir erstmal Red Buff machen.
The forest.
Oh, die machten nicht mal, ist die dumm.
Wie die Geiststelle.
Ja, der hat keinen Jump mehr, Alter. Der kam gerade dann ab, als ich Ding war.
Ich dachte, eine Q killt ihn. Ja.
Dachte ich auch. Irgendwie mache ich weniger Schaden als erwartet mit.
Das ist halt auch ein Morde, vielleicht hat er Schild gedrückt oder so. Oder auch nie unterschätzt. Und da kommt der Jo und kommt zu dir.
Ja. Ach komm, Mann. Bock mir. Viel Spaß schon wieder.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Die Wise Topside.
Keine Ult.
Nicht ignited.
Ja, hab's gesehen.
Ja.
Ja, die sind halt so mobil, Alter. Das war richtig.
Alle.
wild.
Such a busy world.
Will den Drake maybe rushen noch schnell?
Mhm.
Oder aufpassen vor dem Jo, dass der uns nicht Quarter ultet oder so.
Du kannst doch nicht hin, Nino, wenn der Yonder muss. Da rennt ich einfach runter. Wenn ich mal hadern, aber ich weiß gar nicht, ob wir ohne Ulti ihn töten.
Ja.
Ich hoffe nicht, dass ihr den killt. Ich bin halt oben, das wird richtig cool.
Take careful steps.
Ja, der hat doch schon gewartet, der Pisser.
Vielleicht baut man auf dem gar keinen Archangel, sondern einen Rapper oder so.
Venture out of the beaten path.
Och Mann.
An ally has been slain. Enemy rampage.
Ja, und das hat er vorhin auch schon bei mir gemacht. Wir haben drüber geflippt. Da hat ihn weggeflippt aus meiner Queue. Und da ist er dann gestorben.
Aber du hast gerade Jon in mich reingekickt.
Ich habe dich gar nicht da unten gesehen. Ich habe den Jungen
Ja.
von mir weggekickt. So schlecht direkt zurückgewiesen.
The forest holds many
Können wir das chasen und vielleicht dann Baron machen, wenn wir die... Kriegt den Lucian vielleicht dumm gecatcht, weil hier ist eine Y.
Shut down.
wait until you see.
Das ist eine Pflanze, aber wir haben aber auch nicht den Damage, um den Baron zu killen, to be honest.
Come close.
Botlane ist ein Ding. Weiß es nicht.
Just wait. Just a harmless flower.
Gleich U. Matze?
Ach, jetzt macht er.
Kann danach nicht fighten, komplett U.
Been destroyed.
Oh, jetzt Magic Pen. Boah, ey.
Things aren't always what they seem. There.
So fight, nein, easy fight. Good job, boys.
I guess. Obwohl, soll ich Drake machen? Just so.
Your turret has been destroyed.
Tower und Drake.
Na, alle tot. Bis auf.
Venture off the beaten path. Just wait.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Respawn Distance. Der Jorn wird da das Mitte gleich rüber rotieren. Oder kommt der Jorn?
Alter, was für Damage gerade.
Killing spree.
Alter!
Ich bin tot,
Diese
oder?
Ulti, die sieht so crazy aus, wenn die groß ist.
An ally has been
War zum Drake, ich würde dann Drake machen noch.
Ich bin in 17, aber die Weiß ist in 20. Kannst du den Solo? Was frage ich überhaupt, Alter? What the fuck machst du Damage?
Digga, intenses Gameplay. Cute.
Schon
finde-
Blubber, Philipp.
Ich finde, da sollte ich Stardust-Stacks für kriegen.
Schon Blubber.
Ja, ich glaube ich nicht. Ich würde eh kein Cooldown. Ja, ich hab Pen gebaut, weil ich so Pen ey.
Hey,
Ich brauche das bitte, dann habe ich Full Pen. Also den großen haben.
alles gut. Nimm's ganz.
Oben eine Blue Buff.
Kann die. Achso, Mana, Philipp.
Ja, aber
musst du die nicht?
Ich bin jetzt big. Also ein bisschen das Split-Push-Problem. Ocean Arrow. Du bist nur einer, muss eigentlich schon wieder back. Ich geh weg. Aber gewinnt ihr das ohne mich? Ja, sonst geben wir hier um die Base. Durch die Wave an.
Das
die
ist
da
ja
oben
nicht,
kommt.
Alter.
Oh mein Gott.
shut down.
Unlucky. Das sind Alter. Das ist einfach so AFK, ey. Das ist so Wahnsinn. Flip sie doch! Da kommt Jon von der Seite jetzt. Und Morde.
Promising garden.
Ich kauf Pot.
Take careful steps.
Jon Push Botside.
Das ist halt das Problem. Irgendwer muss den deffen.
Wenn wir den töten? Wenn wir den töten können, ist ein Free Baron.
Naja, kommen wir zum Baron, lass mal den Sinch alleine unten töten.
Venture
Wird da nicht gerade irgendwas top sein? Was ist für der Morde?
be ready.
Der Jon kommt, wir können ihn vielleicht catchen.
Ich bin aber down.
Ach, come on.
Der kommt zurück, der kommt zurück.
Ja.
Der Sinch fightet gegen beide. Nice. Ich glaube den Baron. Ich glaube einfach Baron.
Nicht dahinter lassen müssen.
Ist egal, ob sie Szene sind.
Nee, mir geht's nur um das, dass Jon nicht stirbt.
Ja,
Oh mein Gott. Oh mein Gott.
Die Morde dürft keine Ulti haben.
Soul. Ja, die. Bei mir war die hinter der Wand, nur weil sie Smite gedrückt hat.
So geflasht.
Things aren't always what they seem.
wo starten wir direkt?
Ja,
Probably.
ja, die Revolution gemacht hat. Könnt ihr die einfach weghalten?
Ich bin wahrscheinlich probably einfach down. Die war ja keine Ult. Aber steht natürlich auf der anderen Seite der Mauer da einfach irgendwo. Aber hat diesmal keinen Flash. Also da steht sie. Hau du weiter, hau du weiter, hau du weiter. Ja, aber ich kann TP in den 30. Auf jeden Fall für den Stil gehen. Oder hat dich geultigt? Fake ist auf 4K.
Oh Gott. Wird geflasht. Oh, diese fucking Champions, Alter.
An ally has been slain.
Take careful steps.
Hotwave haben oder brauchst du sie?
Ja, ich würde die nehmen und wenn ich Major verkaufen für DevCap.
Venture off the beaten path. Just wait.
Really?
Nicht Lucian.
So, ich muss back. Ich kann dann aber TPen, wenn ich back war. Aber ich muss erst back.
The forest holds many surprises.
TP hier auf die Seite.
Hallo Schatz. Wird einmal Reset zum Setten Feld. Oder falsch? Für besonders. Also für mit dem.
Ja, was macht die mir so viel Schaden? Die one-shottet mich.
Brutal und die kriegt das Shield noch mit dazu, gell?
Ich bin fucking 4000 Leben fast. Ich bitte dich, Game.
Nice. Das Game, oder?
Such a busy
Wenn das
world.
besser schaut.
Alter, wieso geht dieses Game so lang, Mann?
Things unfold what they seem.
Wo Cooldown hast du auf Ulti? Ansonsten kannst du sie einfach ulten.
Töt.
Doch ein Vision. Das sind Morde.
No, ne!
You have slain an enemy. Just wait.
Oh, der darf nicht sterben zum Spiel. Die macht schon
Venture off
wieder
the
durch.
beaten path. Live. Sprout.
So viel Schilde, Alter.
So easy. Drake Boss.
So much more to see.
So sein. Der hat keine Ulti, der hat nicht geultet. Also der Lucian war gerade auch einfach One-Hit.
Na, das ist eine Drake auf jeden Fall.
The forest holds
Tipp
many
P.
surprises.
Ich bin 10 Sekunden ab und dann laufe ich. Ich könnte anfangen. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Ja.
Lauf. Müsste den doch einfach töten können. Der ist tot, oder?
die macht doch diesen Spread. Och, zieh mir eine Ultra.
Forcen wir es einfach, 10 Sekunden haben wir.
Jetzt
Oh,
Drake.
Einfach Drake.
Ah, fuck, der geht hart, ne? Habt ihr einen Drake? Hälfte. Ist das Ende?
Baron oder Ende? Müsste Ende sein. 3 Leute down, also Ende.
Has destroyed a turret.
So krass, wie viel Schilde die kriegt, Alter. Alter Schwede, ey. Ich bin mal belauert.
Jesus Christ. Oh, ich muss viel mehr Stacks, aber ich muss gar nicht, man muss in der last hitten. Das ist ja komplett Banane. Krieg ich nix, nur wenn ich Champions hätte. Also ich musste diesen Brock kriegen, nicht nur anhitten. Also der tickt ja so 1, 2 und dann kommt ja dieser Brock. Und dann kriege ich 1 Star, das. Okay, nur auf Champions. Und wenn die in der sterben, dann kriege ich Star, das dann Minion. Ja, du musst halt dann anders spielen. Ich habe natürlich aber immer mit der Q die Wave gepusht. Aber die Q ist ein bisschen weird. Du musst die so leicht versetzt an den Minions vorbeischießen, damit du alle rittest. Dass dieses Y-Bild mich Half-Life macht mit 4K Leben, ist ein Witz. Mhm. Guck mal, der Ulti da am Ende auf dem Jon, der war gar kein Damage gemacht. Ne, der Jon, der da aus der Base kam. Da steht drin, dass die 1000 Damage macht. Und hat sich nicht so angefühlt, dass die 1000 Damage machen. Haben die ihren Rumble geändert? Ja. 30% oder was ist das jetzt? Die Patch muss durchlesen. Wenn Juni. Cooldown decreased late slow increase. W cooldown decreased late. Was W hat der? Low now increase with rank. Air bonus a day granted increase late. Hm? Der Stab, oder was? Ich fand, der Damage im Midgame fand ich ja gut, aber da am Ende war er irgendwie nicht mehr so der Hit. Fand ich gut. Schwolle, Cooldown, Aurelian Sol, Q bis zum Level. Oh mein Gott, Aurelian hatte 4,6 Armor pro Level. 4,6, das ist crazy. Azir Sanders will also apply Azir spell effect as a single target spell. Azir Sanders will now apply Azir spell effect as single target spell. Azir Sanders now apply Azir spell effect as a single target spell. Sehe ich nicht. Sanders ist dieser Tower, den der stellt. Was ist ein Tower? Irgendwie ziemlich harter Nerv aus, ne? Leben weg, ja, das fuckt Dogans Ring. Damage runter. Ich weiß nicht, seine Soldiers haben so ein extra Damage Scaling.
historically, I don't like. It's hard to know what that means. Like, if you want to talk about like German people, Russian people, Irish people, like there are achievements and things that you can give to specific nationalities, specific ethnicities, things in the past. But it feels like when people talk about like white as an overarching group, because the reality is that like if you were to poll a ton, like there's just something. Oh my God, my mind. I changed so many opinions on politics when I realized this. There needs to be conscious decisions. I think it has to come from media first. And when I say media, I include alternative media as well. So people like you and me, you have to make the conscious decision to start to bridge gaps, right? You can do partisan content for your entire life, but you are evil and you're destroying the country when you do that. When you do hyper partisan content, you are saying that like we are different from these people on a fundamental level. They're evil, we're good, and we're gonna fight that fight and advocate for a national divorce. The issue that I have is that like there is a difference between like white pride and black pride. Like, if we're honest, the histories between these two things are different, and generally the sentiments behind them are different, right?
What is
like,
the difference?
I think the difference is that generally white people are pretty okay in the United States on the qualification of being white. Now, there are poor white people, but their lives aren't because they're white, they're because they're poor. Or there might be white people that are addicted to drugs, but their lives aren't because they're white, they're because they're hooked to opiates. Whereas for black people, African Americans specifically, descendants of slaves, a lot of their lives today are still a little bit, not because their parents were poor or their grandparents were poor, but because there were racial policies in the United States from 64 and earlier that actually like racially impacted people. So I'm very empathetic.
So you only get to have pride if you struggle? I mean, like,
I'm not saying you can only. Here's
that is what you're saying.
No. Hold on, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that like I can understand people treating the things a bit differently.
Sure.
But the problem is that people take it a little bit too far, and instead of saying like, well, hold on, I think that there needs to be a special, unique place for Black people to talk about their place in the U.S. and the history in the U.S. That evolved into white people, they can't talk about anything related to whiteness, and now we're only going to talk about Black issues, and if you even dare challenge that, you're racist. Like, that evolution is very toxic, and I think that change is what has like destroyed so many of the conversations. Thinking back like to the phrase like it's okay to be white, like the response to that should have just, or like white lives matter, the response to that should have just been like, yeah, they do, but like that's not what we're talking about right now, and like that's it, instead of like, no, you can't say that, that's hateful. It's like, why fight against that? Like, it's so stupid.
Right. I didn't quite follow you there at the end. I mean, there is also a kind of double standard of when, you know, someone has Irish pride or something like that. It's like, oh, that's so cool and beautiful and poetic and things like that. Someone says they have German pride and they people have a little bit of a different opinion, or Russian pride, because it's bigger and stronger and more powerful and can actually affect the world, unlike Irish Catholic nationalism or something like that. But you can't just say, okay, it's good if it's weak and it's bad if it's strong. I mean, it's a natural human tendency to want to be a part of a bigger tribe, something bigger than yourself, civilization even. And so it can't just be justified if people are not politically powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on the type of movement you're in and like where you're coming from. Like, because realistically, like when somebody says white pride, I don't really know like white people as a group historically, it's hard to know what that means. Like, if you want to talk about like German people, Russian people, Irish people, like there are achievements and things that you can give to specific nationalities, specific ethnicities, things in the past. But it feels like when people talk about like white as an overarching group, at least in my mind, the only thing I think of is slavery. Because I'm like, well, what did white people do versus like Black people?
Or you think it's almost too generic and kind of
that's the issue. And then when somebody appeals to
something,
something,
what does it mean? You go to Target as opposed to the dollar store, you're white or something?
Yeah.
You know, I agree with that.
Whereas I think and then there's a slight difference too, because when you talk about like African American culture, there was a unifying culture between descendants of slaves, because a lot of them can't even point back to the countries they're from. And so their culture basically starts at my great 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 granddaddy was a slave and that's all I have. And here's the culture that I was thrust into, that was thrust upon me, and then this is what we created out of that. And so I'm more sympathetic to, I understand why some people are like, I have African American pride, but it feels a little bit different. It's like, I have white pride. It's like, okay, well, you can go to Ellis Island, you can see like exactly where your family came from. Like, your pride is going to be a little bit more ethnically precise than that. And when you just say white pride, it feels a little bit strange, you know?
I get what you're saying, and I'm being sympathetic towards it. I have many of the same criticisms. One of the criticisms that I do agree with that you hear from the left is they'll show some image of some fatso screaming white pride or yelling at someone, and they'll be like, this is the white supremacist, and then there's also that other kind of question of like, what are you actually standing for? What do you want?
Yeah.
I think that was a major question, the why question about the alt-right and why it failed and is kind of part of the past now, is because it couldn't answer. There was no like actual spiritual core to what whiteness is.
Which
I think that's
so many
very true.
movements have that issue. Remember Occupy
Yeah.
Wall Street? What the
Yes.
fuck did they want? That was a huge fervor, and it came and it went, and like, what the fuck did you guys want? Or BLM and the riots and the police, like, what did you guys want? To abolish policing? They tried that as a place, it didn't work. Like, what did you guys want? The alt-right, Charlottesville, and everything. What do you guys want? And it's like,
Exactly.
more Christianity, Catholicism, not that. What more, like what? Like, yeah, there's an issue with a lot of
I agree.
misdirected anger today, where it's like, channel it on something and figure out a policy or something to rally by. Maybe legalize like marijuana or something, but find something that you want to champion.
Well,
Otherwise,
that's
it's
because America isn't offering that anymore. So when you think about, okay, I mean, I'll do two things real quick. So just be a little patient. So there is a white identity to the United States that is, I would say, overwhelmingly Protestant and overwhelmingly Anglo. And there were a lot of nativist battles against bringing in Italians and Central Europeans and so on in the 19th century. From the Immigration Act of 1924 and let's say up to the 60s, I think and this was also coming after the progressive reforms that did a lot of great things, in my opinion. But anyway, I think there was a pretty coherent white American public. It was perhaps fleeting. It was kind of more Christian than Protestant, more European than Anglo-Saxon. But it was a real thing. But I also think that like grasping onto that, holding on to it, is kind of clinging to the past. I think we've moved beyond
Was
that
denn los?
period
Ist
of
es
time.
einen
It was
fahren
a
lassen
great
oder was?
time in many ways. It was a bad time if you were African American, or not so bad, but bad
Okay.
in many ways if you're an African.
Chinese, or depending on where you were. what
I
you were
get
doing,
it,
yeah.
I get it, but
wegen Arbeit
it
und-
was something, and I think that was probably the essence of the "Make America
mach ich
Great
nämlich
Again"
viel.
notion. It was about again going back to the past, rehearsing something. But I
Jetzt
think the
let's
main
go.
thing is that
Niemand
America
gebrochene
is
Hand, da
not
kann man am
able
besten
to
Cisco spielen.
offer any overarching, coherent vision that's attractive,
Die wenigstens die Linke
irrational,
gebrochen.
Nein.
that's exciting,
Oh,
Dionysian, and
Haben wir
thus
schon gesagt.
we're kind of
Ja.
Für wie lange dann?
Auch immer dann mal schauen, ob ich irgendwas machen kann im Geschäft oder nicht.
Was willst du mit der gebrochenen Hand machen?
Gut, am PC sitzen funktioniert offensichtlich. Also,
retreating into this like fragmented societies of BLM angst, alt-right angst, Fuentes Yay angst, screw the patriarchy angst. They're probably literally screwing the patriarchy. That's anyway.
I feel-
but because we're not offering anything. When John Winthrop, before he even set foot on this soil, he had an idea of what America was. It was this New Jerusalem concept. It was a highly fundamentalist, puritanical notion, one that I don't resonate with, to be honest. But it was something. He defined it even before he was here. We've had various ways in the Cold War. I mean, I have this article I'm going to publish, but it's about how U2 kind of predicted the Cold War, or ended the Cold War in some crazy way. Though we're torn in two, we can be one. They sang that in 1983 before 1989, 91, and everything changed.
Wollt ihr noch was sagen?
And so they were imagining some
Ich sitze hier
vision
allein
that
in
they
der
wanted to
Lobby.
come be a
Ich
part
warte
of. And I
nur.
think for Bono and you too is actually deeply Christian.
Was?
This is and there has to be
bin schon immer in der Lobby.
something there, or we are going to fragment into things like BLM and the alt-right.
So here, this is something also that I kind of think in terms of. So earlier I alluded to this idea. That I feel like the idea of a
will Nino
unified
mitspielen, wenn
America
wir
was a bit
Aram oder so
illusory.
machen?
Ja,
I
Norbert
feel like we
spielt auf jeden
felt
Fall.
that way, or we feel like in the past it was that way.
Was wollt ihr machen? Wollt ihr Norman
So,
oder
Adam,
Aram?
Könnt ruhig Norman
when you talk about like hip hop and you talk about like rappers, I
Diese
feel like
Motivation hier, ne? Die ist
one
einfach
thing
nicht.
that's really important for a lot of these guys, that a lot of kind of middle class America, and I feel like they were lost, is where you're from.
Oh yeah,
It's, yeah, but I think that I feel like in the United States, I feel like we used to be a lot more local, but again, because of the internet, I think something
ist
happened
eigentlich-
to
ich hab so
where
komplett
now the only thing
CBC
everybody
this.
knows Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Baby?
Everybody knows, like if you
It's
ask like
CB.
a
Nee, keine Ahnung.
conservative in Wyoming or
Das habt ihr
Montana or
auch.
whatever, like
Yes.
which politician do you hate the most? They're going to talk to you about like people from the
spielt
House
nicht
of
ganz
Representatives in New
aktiv.
York.
Yes.
They're going to talk to you about
Über
people
zwei.
that have no
Also,
impact
das
on
heißt
their lives
selektiv, aber er
whatsoever.
spielt immer wieder
And
mal.
I think that there's an
Halt.
illusion I think that's created
Dann
in
hab
the
ich
past
Kiki.
America where everybody's involved
Ja,
in their
genau.
own communities and their own churches and their
Ach,
own unions and their own local politics scene, and you feel like you're kind of a
No
unified
name
America,
Laura.
even though this community and this community might feel
Das ist
totally
komische
different about
Freunde.
things, but in their own
FT
communities,
Wasp,
they've
den hast du
achieved
auch.
some sort
Ja,
of
hab ich.
equilibrium where they feel comfortable and
Den hast
confident.
du.
But
Na, ich
now,
stehe auf meine Friendlist
local
hier.
politics,
Dann noch einen
everybody's
ganz
on
komischen
this
Schopf
national
vor.
level,
Oder bist du gerade bei
and
Ride Mode?
no way can you get 340 million people to all feel the same about anything.
But in a weird way, where we all
Mhm. Haben wir abgebrochen.
Ich habe mir noch gar nicht gesucht.
Das ist eine 0-Sekunden-Queue, also.
Ich hatte keine Q.
Du kannst gar nicht canceln.
Feel the thorns embrace.
Du selbst schon Adams dann die Zara spielen wollen. Ich weiß nicht, ob ich Bock auf Nunu habe, ehrlich gesagt.
Du halt mal lieber.
Willst du auch mal was anderes?
Also den Scheiß hier will ich nicht spielen.
Alter, haben wir ein ätzendes Team. Draußen das Game immer noch spielen.
Ja, der committet halt wenigstens mal.
Der muss ja den Ding gewinnen.
do feel the same. It's kind of both because like a rancher in Wyoming, because he's on social media to some degree, is going to be like, those BLM riots, they're burning down cities, like Antifa's coming from, and it's like, listen, let me, as someone who was assaulted by Antifa, I can tell you, like, they are not coming to rural Montana, like, just
Sure.
let you know.
But I mean, on that
we're
same
all
thing, though-
immediate, we're brought together in this kind of incredible way.
Yeah, but in like but in a horrible way.
Well,
Because
for
the reality
sure.
is that like if you were to poll this is something. Oh my God, my mind. I changed so many opinions on politics when I realized this. Is if you're trying to figure out what Americans feel like, first of all, get rid of the idea of Americans. Number one, and number two, stop looking at national polling data because we don't vote national in anything. We vote for our representatives, we vote for our senators, and then we vote within our states for things. And when you start looking more granularly at American opinion, you start to realize more why things are the way they are. You might think that like, well, 52% of Americans support the legalization of marijuana or prostitution or gun control or whatever. But when you look state by state, you go like, okay, hold on, this breaks down way differently depending on where you're looking at things.
But that's changing.
But we're trying to
opposite trend
force.
is happening.
It might be, but the problem is we're trying to force our national views on everything where we still have a system, whether we like it or even acknowledge it, that still very much works on the local level. I think BLM and policing is a really good example. We tried to come together as a country and make strong statements on policing, but policing is decided by your mayor. These
Right.
are your most local elections. Obama's not going to fucking save you from a bad cop.
Right.
Trump's not going to do shit about an unfair prosecution. But we all are looking and obsessing at that national level, and then nobody everybody looks at their local communities, and now we're like, well, I feel like we don't get along like we ever did before. It's like, I don't know if anybody from New York City in the year 1892 would have gotten along with somebody from, you know, some rural place, some rancher in Texas, but it felt like they did because they never talked to each other. They never had the opportunity to be exposed to each other.
Let me try to bring some of these things together because you're bringing up some very important topics. So America has never been a coherent nation, and it's never been a nation state at all. It has always been an empire in some degree or another.
Sure.
So there's actually a thinker who's out of favor now, who I think is a genius, Frederick Jackson Turner, with this notion of the frontier. So in European languages, if you're, let's say, a Prussian, and you have the word frontier, that means border. That means you've got to face off against the Russian Empire, France, some naval invasion, all that kind of stuff. In America, frontier means the opposite. It means endless open space, which we had. You can just go out there and make a new world, and if you can survive, you're it. And we actually went downward in terms of civilization. So in Boston, you're riding trolley cars and reading the Gospels, and you start to go out into the wilderness and you're rowing a canoe and reading the Old Testament. So we've almost like gone backwards as you go out into the frontier. So and you can see this despite, progressives who kind of FDR as well, kind of nationalized many things, made us more of a European coherent nation. That's not who we are. We do have a kind of outmoded political system on some level. It's at very least not a political system conducive to a nation state.
Wer die einen Taschenrechner oder so?
A coherent, singular identity. Yeah.
Right.
But that's kind of what I wonder when we
so
talk
wanting
about
that, but and this
bin
the
ganz
irony
drin.
is that we are being nationalized. I agree. Like a guy in Maine or a guy in Wyoming who are both kind of right-wing types. They both hate AOC and think she's going to go take their guns or, whatever. So it's like we're going through all of these forces, and I think there's also the contradiction between the ability to deal with domestic issues and then America's identity as a global empire. Like since 1944 at the very least, and probably before that, we've set the terms for the world. The world cannot function without us. I'm not just saying this as some wild
function in a very different way. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it would be horrible if this thing went down. All of these Ron Paul types or tankies or liberals saying, like in the American empire or whatever, they don't know what that will actually entail and a lot of horrors that would entail. So America's always been this frontier in this sense of expansion and globalism. It is what we are. And so there's that contradiction between like domestic affairs and our obligations as imperialists. So you hear this with Pauly of, we need a party about East Palestine and not a party about the globalist in Ukraine or something. Well, actually, as an American,
we need both.
Obviously you need both, yeah, to some degree. But as an American, you actually do need to think about Ukrainians, and not just out of sympathy, which I definitely have, but out of the fact that you have an imperial obligation to think about them. And I think we have this, it's like one of the kind of contradictions of populism is, in some ways Trump was an expression of the decline of America. Not necessarily through his actions, but through his rhetoric of like, come home,
Not amused.
take care of ourselves, let's spend money on ourselves. Americans are dreamers. No more immigration. Build a wall. All of these things are kind of like on some level
shriveling of an insect, the dying of like
And even Trump, when he was a better version of Trump in the 80s, when he was on Larry King or whatever, he was still kind of like that. This nationalism of kind of bringing things in. It might have something to do with the fact that he lives in Manhattan.
Yeah, but I mean, like, look at his investments. The guy spends money and makes money all over the world too, right? Like,
no question.
Yeah.
No question. Russia. Yeah.
I think in terms of what you're talking about, the thing that I guess I'd like to appeal to, is it feels like we're so divided today. But in 1950, like, how often was like a Jewish guy from New York debating a guy that lives in like New Mexico?
Right.
It's never happening. The division might have been believed because those people weren't brought together. But now we've taken this version of the American experiment. We've got so many different people living in our country, which we've made work, and that's awesome. But now we're like bashing heads on everything, and I guess it feels so lame because it feels like such a lib puck thing to say, but I feel like at the end of the day, what we have to appeal to is America has only worked so far, and it will only continue to work if you can accept that some of the people living in your country are Nazis, and some of the people living in your country can hate white people and want them to die, and it sucks. But as long as they're not calling for either side to be killed, you have to accept that these people are all gonna live here, and the country has to
Yeah,
function.
but the
as it
non-aggression principle is not enough. Like, I agree that that's reasonable, and that we could kind of get along and maybe even kind of laugh at each other. I think there's something to be said even for like the friendliness that comes from like telling an anti-Italian joke with your Italian friend. Like, you're kind of making fun of him, but in a way you're kind of both being human in a way. So I get that, but it's not enough. There has to be an overarching meaning of what it means to be an American. America is an ideological nation, just like the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was able to coherently do that. They attracted the minds.
but they didn't.
That's
why they fell apart, right? Yeah.
Right, but they lost it.
But I think because part
And they
of
collapsed immediately.
But
when
part
they
of the
lost
pursuit of that,
legitimacy.
part of the pursuit of that though was like the hardcore Russification of all of the little territories and states that they took over. And I think that's part of why it wasn't like the Soviet Union naturally grew out and expanded as it, expanded its empire and its ideology. A lot of it was literally like, half of you guys died from a famine. We're gonna go ahead and ship 2 million Russians down to Ukraine. We're gonna go ahead and take over all of your governments in Lithuania, Estonia. We're gonna go ahead and do that. And so of course, over time, like the people there never felt like they truly had to buy into the Soviet Union. They were just kind of like subjugated by the Soviet Union. It's like, okay, well, we're here until the Soviet Union falls apart, and now we're leaving immediately, which I think happened when the Warsaw Pact and the Soviet Union collapsed.
that's true to a great extent. There was also a kind of nation building thing of creating nations that didn't exist, giving them national codes. There's kind of countervailing forces. And obviously when they were invaded by the National Socialist Army, there was a call in the motherland and all that kind of stuff. Russian nationalism, Russians are kind of more equal than
and to your
others.
point, Russians still define themselves largely as we beat Nazis. And that's
Yes.
like their calling, their
That's
unifying
their
calling
calling.
card.
Yeah.
It's that negative identity that you almost see against with Americans as well, where it's like liberalism can't assert anything, so it becomes this kind of donut or bagel with a hole in it. So you can't really define, like, this is what it means to be a man in America right now. This is what it really means. Don't give me the non-aggression principle or I'm tolerant or whatever. This is what it means that my life has meaning. America isn't offering that. It's this liberalism is this kind of donut where there's an empty center and that it can't assert anything. And I think if anything, there's like Hitler in the center. Because you can define something of I'm not Hitler. Basically, is like liberal morality. That sucks, and that will collapse. And I think the Soviet example is very interesting in this regard. You can't just define yourself on the basis of
fucking
we beat the Nazis.
Fehlt tausendmal wischen in den Busch.
So I still reject this. I hope. I'm idealistic because I would hope that we can do something that doesn't require a common enemy. But like, if it had to be one, like what would it be?
Islam could play that role. I think
that won't work anymore actually, because now all these conservative simps. It's so goddamn funny because 4 years ago, I fought against so many conservatives who were like, I think that women are sluts and they should do this. I'm like, listen, bro. And I'd say this just a trigger to fucking it kind of sounds like you're talking about Sharia law. Like, no, we don't mean that. We would never do that. Blah, blah. But now you've got all these Tate fans.
Together.
Yeah, like actually, Muslims are pretty based. Women can't drive. They're not allowed to have a say politically sometimes. Like they have to stay in the house. Like I don't know. Maybe Tate was right when he converted. It was like, what the guys? Like 5 years late to the show. So I don't even know if you could get conservatives on that one.
No,
But
you can't now. I think Andrew Tate phenomenon is actually incredible because he's the biggest man slut on earth on one direction.
gambling,
He's also-
haram shit.
Right,
Yeah.
he's
Runs
a
casinos.
criminal on another direction. He is a Muslim on another direction, and a masculinity icon. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. But so I don't think the Islam thing will work, although that was tried to some extent. I think Russia as a big bad enemy is a positive manifestation, and I think
So
people
boring.
could kind of serve that purpose. But there also has to be this assertion of who are we.
Wieso spielen die Leute
opposition to
Adam?
whoever we fight
And, yeah, it's in opposition, but it's also an assertion. It's not an argument, and it's not about tolerance, it's not about liberalism. It's an assertion of identity. Identity is not an argument. Identity is an assertion.
Sure.
And that is what we need.
Is there any common ground that really stands out to you in terms of Americans, like stuff that we really can agree on? Because
It is
it is hard to find almost anything.
Yeah.
I don't think so, actually. And this is always my biggest argument against Splinter, is because, and anytime I debate somebody in the very far right, it's like, we need to defend our Eurocentric, whatever, American identity. It's like, give me some common values between, like, the gayest dude in San Francisco and, like, a farmer in rural Texas. And, like, and the reality is, like, I can point to countries around the world where conservatives are going to be way more aligned with, like, Saudi Arabian values versus, like, the Rainbow Road and fucking Seattle people's values or whatever. And the reality is that, like, yeah, it's really hard to find a unifying identity in the United States. And again, it's the gayest thing I've ever said, but, like, I really do think it is all of the different opinions that we have here that still function under one system that makes us, like, truly unique as a country. But I mean, maybe it's not enough. I don't know. Like, do you ever play PlayStation or Xbox or whatever? No. This fucking drove me crazy as a kid. You could never just play one or the other. You had to hate the other group too. You ever notice that? It's like, oh yeah, I play PlayStation. It's like,
Super
true.
Nintendo and but
Warum?
Yeah, everybody
Mortal
always,
Kombat 2 didn't have blood on the Super Nintendo, but it did on Genesis. So we were
Oh,
looking,
like
I was a Super
kids
Nintendo
with
guy too, and this was just an example where clearly I had to get a fucking Game Genie if I wanted the blood
put
to be
blood
the right
in?
color.
yeah, because otherwise it'd be green. I remember that.
I was deeply offended.
But yeah, it feels like every time when you're in a group, it's like, why can't you just like yourself? It happens a lot with the CRT and the anti-black stuff where it's like, white people. It's like, bro, why can't you just be happy for yourself? Like, you really have to, or for white people and hating black people.
It's because we're animals. I don't, we're mammals. That's like the simplest answer. But I'm not saying that we should do this merely on tribalism or like, you know, I hate my neighbors because they're, you know, they root for a different football team or whatever. What I'm arguing for is that there does need to be a bigger ideological assertion. And I think this might come in a way after we go through this period. I think Biden, you know, is managing things is just fine, but I think we're all kind of aware that we're kind of at the end of something.
Maybe.
And you know, what's going to come after that? I think there are a lot of, there are going to be some competing visions for a world order. Obviously, communism was a competing vision for a world order. Fascism was a competing vision. Islam can do that. It can function in that way. It has in the past. And it can create some discipline in society.
I feel like something that sucks today, and maybe it was an artifact, or maybe it happened in the history too, I don't know. But it feels like everything today is so politicized. It's really, really, really hard that we can't take credit for sick shit that we're doing. Like in '69, landing on the moon. Really cool. That must have been a really cool day to be an American. When you're sitting down and you're watching TV and we landed on the moon. That's awesome shit. But nowadays, it feels like every American invention is immediately claimed or castigated based on your political rivalry. So for instance, I might trigger you, I don't know where you guys stand on this. I personally think that the vaccination was like a model success of
Oh my
U.S.
God.
companies, through innovation,
Was
are
hab ich
working
da
with other companies
gewünscht?
around the world, biotech in Germany, manufacturing.
Vorbei.
We found a way to create an insanely sophisticated vaccine in like 8 months.
It should have been like landing on the moon. Right?
Haben
It
die
should have
So
been
alle
cool,
weg.
and it happened. Yeah, and Trump obviously wants credit for it, but like, no, that's political shit. Or I'll give the flip side, so I know a lot of white people are triggered. I personally, and I hate the guy because I think politically he's the most cringy dude in the world. But Elon Musk with electric cars and rockets are cool. That's awesome. The first time you saw one of those in SpaceX rockets come back and land on the planet, that was the sickest shit in the world. And same thing with electric vehicles. I mean, we probably would have gotten there eventually, but no doubt, I don't even like Teslas that much because the build quality is iffy, but he did something really cool with Teslas. There's charging stations all over the United States. Electric cars are being taken seriously. The car companies work more than like every fucking car company on the planet, but we can't give credit. And these are American inventions. SpaceX and Tesla and the vaccine, these are American things, but it's all like held politically hostage now. So you said before, we have to have like, we have to have domestic and international, but it feels like the international facing version is like, it's like two parents disciplining a child. Mom and dad can't provide a unified front when they're fighting with each other constantly. And in the United
Auch die
States,
Minions
both
da
sides are trying to tear
rumblocken.
each other apart. Like, how the can we even present some kind of unified front to the rest of the world? You know, now with Biden, we're talking about how we want to help Ukraine, we want to save them, we want to provide a strong American vision. And before under Trump, we were like, we want to disband NATO and fuck the rest of the world.
Right.
And you've got people like Angela Merkel and the Australian Prime Minister and the Mexican president saying like, well, we can't rely on America for shit anymore. And yeah, we're like schizophrenic in terms of domestic ideas. We hate each other so much that even when we accomplish good shit, we can't take credit for it. And it makes it impossible to provide like a unified vision of what America is and stands for to the rest of the world.
I agree. Yes, but I basically that's why I'm suggesting that we're kind of at the end of this era, because you do need to do that.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we need to. Well, I think we need to do. I don't know if we're at the end of the era. We always find a way to keep going on, but
Right.
A few publications are predicting like a vibe switch coming soon, and I think that was probably largely in terms of the arts or just people's overall disposition. But it does feel like the world as a whole is kind of growing tired of this sort of constant infighting and battling between both sides, and it does seem like there's got to be something on the other side of it, but nobody's really sure how that could possibly manifest itself at this point.
because yeah,
Da steht doch Minions, Alter.
we're very much, we feed into each other. What the media does and what people want. Like, media wants to blame people for being stupid. People want to blame the media even though they keep watching it. Yeah, there has to start to be, there needs to be conscious decisions. I think it has to come from media first. And when I say media, I include alternative media as well. So people like you and me, you have to make the conscious decision to start to bridge gaps, right? You can do partisan content for your entire life, but you are evil. You're destroying the country when you do that. When you do hyper-partisan content, you are saying that, like, we are different from these people on a fundamental level. They're evil, we're good, and we're going to fight that fight and advocate for a national divorce or whatever some people are fighting for. They're like, no, fuck you. We're Americans. You need to be able to talk to the guy that either wears a hood or wears a black hoodie and wants to kill cops or whatever. You have to be able to bring these people together and talk. And if you're not willing to do that, you are actively contributing to the destruction of the country, in my opinion.
I totally agree, and I think there is space for someone who can lean out of polarization, because right now
Ah, ich muss
the
vorne
most
move.
successful politicians just lean into it so hard, and it just becomes nasty and meaningless. And there is some space. But again, it's like kind of an empty space.
Oh,
because I don't know if
unreasonable
Biden
few
hasn't
damage.
quite successfully done that, even though he has
He
genuinely
tries.
tried.
I give him credit
Maybe
for it for
just due
trying.
to his age, basically. It's why he isn't successful, but also why he tried, because he can remember kind of back then.
Yeah, well,
I
because
think-
he was a senator for like 7,000 years, right? And yeah, he's talked to and worked with. Yeah.
He's also like, me and these segregationists, we used to get things done over in
They
Washington.
did, yeah,
Go to the
true.
old Ebbett Grill and have a liquid lunch,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. Yeah, so, I mean, that's who he is. I think Trump, at his best, kind of tried that.
Doing no
And
Half-Life, man.
he talked about it. Dude, there were so many people on the campaign trail where it's like, are you going to turn it on and be the businessman that I think you can be?
Right,
But-
but if you look at him most charitably, you could say he was kind of trying that, but he didn't. He leaned into it. He leaned into insane conspiracy cults at the end. I mean, it
Ich
was
will maximal
disaster.
weit weg.
But there is a kind of space for something, and that's why I do think that we need to talk about these things religiously, like a vibe shift or something. It's almost like the polar magnetism is going to switch.
Yeah.
Or something. It switches every 2,000.
Really, vibe is like a new age word for spirituality.
Well,
We
I
really think
there
about it,
is-
right? Yeah.
there is some kind of collective consciousness and a collective mood, and I don't think I'm being like woo-woo in saying that, in the sense of what is the kind of music that defines a period where you just hear it and you know where it is. Like, if you think about the 80s and like synth pop or Madonna or Just Can't Get Enough and all that kind of stuff, you're immediately kind of transported to that time. And at the same time, a kind of like the nihilism of punk,
Verpiss
like
dich, Kockmann.
actively being out of
Warum nimmt er nicht die Ash?
tuning and slamming your instruments. That also defined a
Einmal
particular
P
era.
neben mir.
And even if it wasn't the most popular music, it was the kind of it was the music that defined the vibe of that period. So I do think we act collectively in this way. I think that's a very real thing.
And it's interesting because, like, when I started doing
Die
hip hop
ekelt mich.
podcasts, like 2016, so around the same time that you were kind of invigorated with politics and in a different level, and generally, even within the hip hop community, almost everybody would agree that music at this point, hip hop is like incredibly bland, and that hip hop is ready for something new, something exciting, something that doesn't feel so stale. We just have no idea what it is. And I kind of feel like that's the general overall theme, because when I interviewed Nick Fuentes, I was ready to be on Media Matters and ready to be torn apart for having a conversation with him, and nobody gave And a few years ago, I would have been extremely worried about having a conversation with you. I'm quite sure nobody's going to give it. It just feels like, in a lot of ways,
Surely they'll give them.
they'll give it some kind of, but it's just not going to be anything.
I'm probably gonna get more heat for this conversation with you.
Well, don't you?
Oh, blank.
Back into the fray.
Ich darf nicht ulten oder was? Wieso ulti ich nicht?
Ja, das ist halt die LEM-Reflexe, ne?
Ich drück die ganze Zeit Ulti, Alter, und der macht nichts.
Oh mein Gott.
Alter, ich kann.
Was denn?
Ich bin einfach One-Shot.
Der R-Knopf, ne?
Die machen mir einfach so viel Damage, dass ich einfach schneller tot bin, als es meine Ulti zündet.
Der R-Knopf, ne? Der Lee hat den weggemacht. Dido.
Jetzt Takt.
Oh, die Türme fallen nicht mehr um. Gott bless. Komm doch hier, du kleine Rotte.
Stimmt, die Türme fallen nicht mehr.
Dann aus dem Busch schnell. Nicht, ne? Boah, ich drop die X. Aha.
Oh no. Mann.
Oh, der liegt auf dem Sack. Ja, diese Bruiser Blitz Damage ist ja der Wahnsinn. Ich will jetzt auch nur noch Bruiser.
Direkt 120% Healing, 120% Shielding.
Der hat mir gerade 1900 Damage gemacht mit Q Autotech Ult.
Ja, deswegen konnte ich vorhin nicht Ulti drücken.
Ich glaube, da ist doch wieder aus andere Gründe, bin ich ehrlich. Ne?
Oh, der war.
Nein, McCarran. Alter!
Shield. Okay, Healing an. Der healt, Alter.
Mal zertrollt.
Ich darf nicht ulten, ich werde hin und her geschoben.
Du kleine Pisser, pisst doch jetzt von mir. Hat der Lee gegen mich, Mann?
Da sind Pilze, ist Fakt drin.
Ist gar nicht AP, guck mal. Warte, wir vorhin so viel Damage haben mit der Ult. Ah, okay, das war das.
Bei dem kommst du halt nicht raus aus der. Nein, was?
Back into the fray. Enemy has been slain. An ally has been
Cecilie.
Es ist einfach egal.
My flaws are a badge of honor.
Vergeht.
Battles bring out so many emotions.
Zum Tod.
Boah, ich will unbedingt die Minion-Hits.
Gleich wieder Ulti.
I've chosen my shackles.
Oh, ne?
This world is all I have. Take pride in how swiftly we fall. I walk so I can feel the rush of the earth.
Ach, laber mich nicht zu, oder? Komm doch einfach nicht ran, oder was?
Stefan, diese verschissenen Pilze, Alter.
Warum kann der nicht dashen, wenn dieses komische scheiß Ding da anhat?
Immer dashen.
Ich mach gar keinen Damage, I guess. 6 Item Draven now, I guess.
Spielt keine Rolle, wie jetzt sich gegen mein Damage gegen. So dumm, Alter. Der Easy mit 2 Auto-Attacks vorne.
Matze, 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 Matze. Das ist weg.
Ich habe Wiki.
Ach, Mann.
Das ist so dumm mit dem Kino. Das ist halt überall Pilz, ja.
Ei.
Das ist halt einfach.
Na, ich bin tot, Leute.
Nehmen wir alles clearen.
Wir können noch mit dem Leben halten.
We are the sum of our mistakes.
An ally has been slain.
Ja. Wie vorbei jetzt.
Oder?
Hm.
Your inhibitor is
Das ist keiner Mann denn dran.
has been destroyed. Shut down. Ace. Your inhibitor has
Ich gönn's mit. Gute Nacht.
Schön.
User disconnected from your channel.
Ich 5 Stunden Miese gefühlt. Meeting. Manchmal müssen arbeiten hier oder so. Weißt du? Ja, aber 2 Stunden Karten gespielt während dem Meeting. Aber Warnung muss ja nicht unbedingt wegmachen, oder? Das ist eine Warnung. Aber wenn ich bei mir nicht vom Cube starte, dann kommen auch ungefähr 1 Billion Warnungen und dann funktioniert das trotzdem. Die besser ist er. Die immer so Lebensmittel nachmachen. Der Lege. Das ist keine Ahnung. Der Lege ist witzig. Ja, ich habe nur diese Serie angeschaut, wo der eine bringt irgendein Lebensmittel und der Lege muss es nachbauen. Ja. Ja, das stimmt. Das heißt auch, die besser ist, also das glaube ich. Nee, mit dem Lege. Der Lege. Der coole. Ich hab den. Nee, das ist so ein dicker. Das ist der macht so für die. Der hat so Produkte entwickelt für die. Der hat zum Beispiel die Ketchup-Scheiben entwickelt oder. Nee, das hat er entwickelt und jetzt ist er eben bei ZDF und macht für die diese Essensanalysen und so. Ja, ihr weißt schon, ich mache die produktiven Vorschläge, du bist einfach noch gemein zu mir.
Gar nichts mehr den Stream laufen lassen.
So, die,
keine Ahnung, ich finde es eh weg weird, wenn man deinem Stream zuguckt, kein Bild sieht, aber irgendwas im Hintergrund läuft. Da nichts dazu gesagt wird. Einfach nur im Hintergrund läuft. Ja, kommentieren, was die sagen.
wäre schnell gebannt. Schön. Ach. Mein Gedankengut ist konform. Du stellst mich da wie der letzte Mensch. Ja, und was ergibt rechts bis links? Mittig. Wunderschöne Mitte. Mitte mit Kante. Ey. Ach, Mann, netter Johannes, echt, es ist, ne? Ich hab Ping jedes Mal, wenn meine Mitte weg ist. Der Alistair letztens, der war 30 Mal in der Mitte, ich habe nicht eines S gehört. Nicht ein einziges. Hands down. Und ich habe trotzdem die Botlane verloren, das war das Witzigste daran. Ah ja, dann schau dir mal die Games an, bitte.
I think I have just invented my...
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about Trump's poll numbers at CPAC and what they mean and what they don't.
Mhm.